Okay, so let's have a look at some of the possible cost leadership strategies. First of all, thinking of the competitors, and you'll see on the screen we've actually got a diagram there actually showing you the different areas of a potential cost leadership strategy. And I think first of all, thinking of competitors, I think it goes without saying that there's going to be rivalry with existing competitors. This is basically due to you as a cost leader's advantageous position. But rivals are actually likely to hesitate to compete on the basis of price, because if you've actually got your leadership strategy correct and actually you're selling things the most efficient and effective way you can actually a competitor compete with you? If this actually happens and there is actually a lack of price competition, this could actually lead to greater profits for you. If we think next then looking at the buyers, and we actually think about the bargaining powers of the buyers, and actually using this to drive the prices far below that of for the competitors. If you can actually get your things purchased at a much cheaper price, then actually this may cause your competitors to exit and actually shift power with the buyers back to the firm. If we move across to the suppliers, and if we actually think about the bargaining power these suppliers actually have, now they can actually mitigate the suppliers' power by being able to absorb the cost increases due to a low cost position, because what is really important that your suppliers don't actually hold you to ransom, so you do actually have a way of actually where you can absorb cost increases. However, you can actually turn this round the other way, because if you're actually buying extremely large purchases from them, then actually you then need to use your power, and perhaps if that supplier is making things mainly for you, it does actually reduce the chance of that supplier using power, because they're then dependent upon you. If we look at new entrants, now the threat of potential entrants, now it can actually frighten these new entrants off, because if you're selling your product as a cost leader, you're selling it on a large scale, any new competitors who actually try and enter the market actually needs to enter on quite a large scale in order to be cost effective. And the problem is when you start doing that, you have to go through a learning curve. And the question to ask is, will the competitor be able to cope financially with going down this learning curve, or will it be too much? If we think about product substitutes, and I think you as a cost leader, it's actually always worth looking, learning more about the product, and actually thinking, can you make the product, a substitute product, cheaper? Now perhaps the item you're making in steel, you could actually make in toughened plastic at a reduced cost, as an example. And as a cost leader, you're actually well positioned to make investments, to be the first to actually create these substitutes. Now there's always the need to constantly research and develop opportunities, but of course it's one of those things that you need to be doing at a relatively low cost. And obviously making sure that you're buying patents to actually protect any substitutes you come up with, but all the time actually making sure that you can offer the lowest prices in order to maintain that value position. So this is something we've considered before on the cost leadership. Cost leadership is simply about being cheap. It's about being cheaper than others. It's not providing a flash service, it's not a high quality service, and it's not a great service at all particularly. If we think about the economies of scale and the bulk buying, the learning, the importance of actually understanding your product better, how you can make it much cheaper, if it needs improving, how you actually do this. The capacity utilization, actually using it more, and if you remember we spoke about a sandwich shop which was busy until lunchtime, but in the afternoons it closed. So they actually started doing children's cookery lessons after school to actually use that capacity utilisation. If we think about the linkages with the other parts of the business, do we actually have materials perhaps that we don't actually use, wastage? We might have great big squares of wood come in which we make round tables out of. So we're going to have all these offcuts of wood. What are we using them for? Are we actually using them as a way of bringing in additional income? The interrelationships among the different units, making sure that everyone's on board, making sure that everyone knows you are looking to be the cost leader, doing things as cheap as possible, actually talking to the staff, consulting with the staff, because often these are the people who actually know a much better way of doing something. The geographic location, actually making sure you're perhaps near the raw materials or near the market, and essential that there's good transport lists. And then again thinking about any institutional factors. So of course then, if we're thinking about differentiation, we're actually thinking that it actually selects one or more attributes that buyers in the industry perceive as important and unique positions to actually meet those needs. It requires the business have sustainable advantages that allows to provide buyers with something uniquely valuable to them. And of course by doing this, it's actually rewarded with this uniqueness in actually being able to charge a premium price. Now differentiation actually arises from one or more activities in the value chain that creates a unique value which is really important to buyers. And if we think about the drivers of uniqueness, it's actually exactly the opposite as it was on the cost leadership. It really has to say something about our product, something about our service which is so much better to customers, so much better that you want to pay more than the cheapest price. It could be the taste, it could be the quality, the features, the links, it could be the celebrity endorsement. And if you think of some of the examples we've looked at, we looked at some of the supermarkets. For example, you could have Lidl as a cost leader versus Waitrose as differential. And equally in the airlines, we could actually have, say, Ryanair as a cost leader and British Airways as a differential. They're actually offering something different. We'll look in the next video at the advantages and disadvantages of cost leadership.